Hello and welcome. It's the Curious Pigeon here, and today we're taking a look back in time at X Sector at Alton Towers, so I hope you enjoy. Now, this is imagery from 2009, so it's a good 15 years ago as of recording this in 2024, and there are a good few changes as you'll see. Now, I must say, I do quite like the theming around here. I know it's not the most over the top theming in the world, but I just think it's effective, with what they have used. You've got the red lights, you've got the sort of wire fencing, it's got that sort of security-esque element to it. And I do like when you're at the entrance here, you can see Oblivion and the drop straight away. And then when you pan to the right, you can see the old black hole tent, and all of this lovely sort of foliage and trees is where the Smiler now is. It's just, you can't tell at all that this is what used to be there. So as you make your way down, you get a bit of a better view of the Oblivion drop, but also you get what I have to say is my favourite image to look back of this area, because you can see KFC just on the left there. Then you've got Submission, which is mid movement. You've then got Enterprise and obviously the black hole tent, as we've already seen. Oblivion, Submission, Enterprise, Black Hole, and KFC. And three of those things are no longer there at all, and one of them, KFC, is a completely different shop. I just wanted to touch upon some of the black hole theming because this is pretty good. This is pretty massive, this, and you can see where the plants have started to grow in, and obviously there is no sign saying black hole up there anymore. But this is pretty chunky. This almost looks like something that you could see as a bit of a Jurassic World style entrance or something Star Wars-esque even. And then I believed you queued down this way and you can see another little bit. Well, you can see the hills and all the trees, but there's also another little kind of tunnel part here. It was confusing though, because it looked like potentially a queue line area, but I couldn't work out where you got in. But then this almost looks like a mock entrance / exit with that big vent thing over. So I couldn't quite work it out. And then you've got this sort of rather wide shelter here, but then on this side you can see it's like a mock vent, but then there is access behind, or there was. And then here's what I just started to mention, this big wide shelter, and I believe it says S because it is a smoking point, and it looks like you've got a butt box there. And then we've got another game, and this is called Detonator Drop right here, just your bog standard basketball game. And I do really like where Oblivion comes out. It literally looks like it's coming out of the water. And again, you've got that theming continuing. But I just think it works with the sort of, almost looks a little bit swamp-like, which, I'm sure probably was intentional. But I also really like the interaction over here between Oblivion and Enterprise, because you're so near each other when, whichever ride you're on. And I also just wanted to take a second just to highlight quite how big and wide and chunky the Oblivion track is. I mean, I've been on Oblivion, I've walked around near it before, obviously not so much down this end, but it's pretty chunky. And then we have Submission, and we can see one of the gondolas was being used. Now, this was 2009, as I mentioned before, but I don't know if this was at a point where they'd switched to using one gondola entirely, or whether this was just a day where it's quieter or there were minor issues on one side. But I remember after a certain point, they only used one. But this was quite a nice looking ride, and again it fitted the area. So we've already seen that the rides have all got their own sort of mini theme in this part of the park. So we can see Oblivion has orange, and then Submission has blue, and Enterprise has green. And I just wanted to touch upon some of the signposts and theming here. So you've got the name of the ride and the rules and restrictions on these sort of like vent pipes or tubes. And Enterprise, as you'll see in a second, has the same thing. Oblivion doesn't, but I just think it's interesting how they've both got their own sort of little mini theme with these signposts, but again, it's in keeping overall. Now, what I found interesting with this Google Street View footage was that it allows you to go around the back here. So I had no idea that this was open to the public. If it was, it doesn't look like where you get into the queue or exit any of these rides. But look, you get right under the brake run where you sit for about 3 years. So yeah, I was quite surprised that this Street View cyclist was able to get round here. And it's all, paved and everything. But to my knowledge, it's not somewhere that you would go. So yeah, it quite surprised me. But look, you're right near a gate. Now, there's also a service road. Surely the members of the public wouldn't be able to get near this, would they? So maybe it's just one of those things. But going down this way does offer you a nice view at a completely different angle to what I've ever seen of Oblivion. Just look at that. And we'll just go a little bit further. But again, you do get to appreciate the Oblivion track some more. But yeah, it's odd because it all looks fenced off. And it does look like another little access way, potentially, if they took some of the fencing out for, service vehicles and stuff. But really odd, really odd. And then we have submission actually mid-ride here. Now, I did hear that when you used to go on submission, you could hear change and stuff shaking about inside the ride that had been dropped before. Quite how it would get stuck in the ride, I don't know. Surely it would fall out onto the floor, but anyway, apparently you could hear stuff rattling around inside. But I bet you got some interesting views being flipped upside down on that. And here we have the part of the Oblivion queue which is still there, and you can see some of the orange theming. And then we have this little seating area for lots of ladies on this day for some reason. Maybe people still use it as a picnic area. I don't remember that being removed, but I also don't remember this giant floodlight. So is that or isn't that still there? I've got absolutely no idea, and I only went on the 8th of September. I'm recording this on the 23rd. And here we have the entrance to Oblivion, which hasn't changed too much apart from the Oblivion single riders queue. To my knowledge, that doesn't exist anymore, but they are bringing single rider queues back, it seems, so fingers crossed it will make its way to Oblivion as well and cut down some of them queue times. Now, this interesting and odd structure is right next to the entrance to Oblivion, but does anyone know what this actually is or was? I thought maybe it was some kind of area for some arcade machines, like some claw grabbers, or maybe a little shop, and then there was an entrance either side. It looks too small, of course, to be the toilets, and we know they're not far away from this point. But I was very confused about that, so if anyone knows, please do tell me. And then we've got our first good view of the Oblivion drop. It gets me every time. Every time. I get on that tilt and I love the view, and part of me does love scaring myself to look down. But there is a moment when you go, oh dear. But I do like that I still get that nervous excitement. Does that still happen to any of you guys? And here we've got some of the theming. Now, we know that in the last few months this has been updated and they've painted around the hole that it's orange, and they've painted some of the Oblivion symbols on the walls orange as well. And again, a light touch, but looks really effective. And here we've got the rehydrator, again with that sort of same pipework theming. And we've got X site on the left and X cell on the right. Of course, X site being the arcade, which is still there, and then X cell being the Oblivion shop. And again, you have the Oblivion symbols on the supports. Now, I'm sure it's part of the theming, but it almost seems odd to have the Oblivion symbols because surely you know what they are. But maybe it is genuinely part of a marker system to say, hey, these supports are Oblivion. Therefore, if you need to check something, check this. I don't know. And then we have the best view I could get of the Oblivion hole. I have nothing better to call it than the Oblivion hole. But again, I really love the mist that you fall into on this, and I hope they never get rid of that. And again, this sort of spiky looking nature of this, I just think it looks brilliant. And then we've got Meltdown, Not too sure on the theming on there, but we'll look again at that in a second. And here's just a little bit of a closer look at the arcade. Again, looks pretty bog standard machines. It was when I went through a couple of weeks ago. And then we have an advertisement for Halloween. Don't get a great view of this when you zoom in, but you can just see a little snippet of the old branding, kind of, and some of their old Halloween or Scarefest advertisements. Look at the massive pipework theming there. I just think it works, you know. And there you go. There's a little bit of a better view of KFC over here. Do you see how the red kind of covers the sign Meltdown, but it's not ombre. They've just got random like burnished bits of red. It just looks a bit odd. And again, you can see it more from the front here. Again, we've got more of those massive sort of vent style tubes at the front, the two big black vents, and then you've got the little silver ones as well. It almost looks like you should be able to sit upstairs because it looks like proper fencing, like you should be able to do that. And that would be pretty cool if you could. But yeah, just interesting. Just it looks like they've quickly dashed some red on there. So they all look, KFC has red. And I thought we would finish on this view where you can see all of the old attractions. I mean, that's a bit of a history snippet. But yeah, hopefully we'll see flat rides down the other end one day and they'll get rid of the food trucks, which, whilst I appreciate the theming of those and their names, definitely look very temporary and they're just filling a gap. But I'm interested to see what we'll get. And here we have it. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.